All right, Mawunyo Gbogbo, how are you going?
I'm very well. It's a pleasure to be here, Anastasia.
Lovely. All the way from Ghana, you're quite global. You've achieved quite a lot. You're a journalist, you're an author. Just delving into your work, I'm quite impressed into the things that you've just been able to achieve coming from royalty into where you're at right now. Amazing journey. But outside all the accolades, who's Manu?
Mawunyo, essentially, at my core, I'm someone who just loves to have fun. Like I think one of the ways I get through things, right, is to laugh. So if I'm going through something difficult, I tend to find the funny side of it. And so me at my core is I just want to have a good time. And I will laugh at, probably inappropriate times sometimes, but just to get myself through the tough times. And I also love to laugh. I just love to laugh.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key thing about me. I'm also very passionate about a lot of things, but I'm passionate about social justice. I'm passionate about health. I'm passionate about creativity and entertainment. I'm passionate about good relationships,
Mm.
having good people around me. So I think that's me in a nutshell, to be honest.
Lovely. Passionate about a lot of things. Let's talk about why you joined journalism because you did say you're passionate about creativity. Why journalism?
So journalism is something that I've always wanted to do. So the journalism bug bit me really, really early in life. So
Mm.
when I was in the first or second grade at school, a teacher came up to me and said, "Are you going to be like Trisha Goddard?" And I don't know if you remember Trisha Goddard when
Mhm,
she used to host the 7:30 report on the ABC.
mhm,
And back then, I was just a child. So for me, mum and I used to discuss Trisha's hair. And I used to say things to mum like, why does Trisha have hair like that? And why is mine more of an afro texture? And mum would say, no, Trisha's wearing a wiglet. And I said, what's a wiglet? I want a wiglet. But my teacher made me realize I could have more than just hair extensions. I could have Trisha's career. And that, as soon as I had that seed planted in my mind,
mm,
it never really left. I did work experience really early on in year 10. Everyone does work experience. And I did it at the local newspaper and at a television station which was nearby. So, NBN television station in Newcastle. I was living in Muswellbrook at the time. And even before that, I was writing for the school newspaper. I did work experience at the local ABC radio station in Muswellbrook. I had done so much work experience even before I went away to uni to study journalism. And it wasn't an easy path for me. It wasn't a straight path because I failed my HSC, my high school certificate. So these are the entrance exams that allow you to do things like journalism or whatever it is you want to do as a career. And I had failed, and you needed a TER, it was at the time, a tertiary entrance rank in the high 90s if you wanted to study journalism at the university I wanted to go to, which was Charles Sturt University in Bathurst. And my TER was around 45 point something. So I failed pretty dismally. And I had a cousin of mine, an uncle, who came over and said, you know, there are different ways you can reach your goal. You can either go via a straight line, he drew a straight line on the piece of paper, or you can go via a curvy line.
Mm.
or, a round line. And that's what I did. I took the curvy way to my destination, but I still made it to my destination. So because I grew up in the country, I got an extra 5 points, which
Right.
meant I just passed. I got an extra 5 points because growing up in the country was considered a bit of a disadvantage. And also, I wanted to go to a country uni. Charleston University in Bathurst was known as the number one university for journalism students. Graduates there are known as the Mitchell Mafia, and you'll see members of the Mitchell Mafia all over our television screens and on the radio and so on, right, with their bylines in the newspapers, etc. So that's where I wanted to go. I got those extra 5 points, and then I enrolled in a different course to begin with,
Mm.
so media and cultural studies. I applied to do journalism a year later. I got
Right.
knocked back.
Uh-huh.
I got knocked back. So, I made sure that I had good good grades. I was doing like extracurricular activities. And the next time around, a year later, I applied again to do journalism. By then, I had a folder full of references from my professors and all sorts of people. I had myself on cassette tape, it was back then, on the radio. I had myself on VHS, on video. So I'd been doing work experience on television. I had all that. I had my byline in the newspaper. I had so many examples of my journalistic work that they just couldn't say no this time around, right?
Mm.
And so I got in. I got into journalism, and it still wasn't an easy path from there. But I finally got into the degree I wanted to be doing, and I studied abroad for a semester upstate New York. Uh yeah, so I I made it into journalism, and now I'm a journalist, which is really quite extraordinary when you think about it, because not everyone who studies journalism gets to be a
Mm.
journalist at the
Yeah.
end of the day, especially not for the national broadcaster, a mainstream media organization.
Mm.
And so it's quite remarkable that I've been able to come this far.
Amazing. And I'm really proud of you, but I'm also proud of that journey because there's a lot of learning there. First of all, that, yeah, things don't always have to be on a straight line. Sometimes they do take a curve. And so when life gives you lemon, you make lemonade, you detour as you need to do to get to where you are. That really strong resilience. But something you also talked about right there, which is really key to our listeners, and I hope they've, whatever, that you have to become so good that people cannot ignore you. Whatever it is that you want in life, sometimes we can pull out the race card, sometimes we can pull out the gender card, we can pull out the sex preference card, whichever card we want to pull out. But if you become so good that people cannot ignore you, the reality is then they cannot ignore you, and you'll get to where you're wanting to be. So what an amazing story right there. But I want to talk about journalism and how it has evolved since you started in 10th grade to where we are now. How have you seen it evolve?
It's evolved a great deal. So when I first started in the Sydney newsroom at the ABC, that was in 2002. Basically, people worked in radio or television. They very rarely crossed over and did both. Online wasn't really a thing back then, but
Mm,
now you've got people doing everything, multitasking a lot.
mm,
So it's changed in that way, certainly. It's also continuing to change now, with the onset of AI, with the fact that it's so hard to get people's attention these days. You know,
Mm.
people are on social media and a lot of different places, and they're not necessarily sitting down for the 6 p.m. or the 7 p.m. news bulletin of a night time. They're consuming news throughout the entire day. And so we have to react to that, right? You
Mm.
can't just wait till 7 p.m. to broadcast a story. As soon as the story happens, that's when it goes out. Things like that. So it's changed quite a bit, just even in my working lifetime.
And how are you guys navigating that world where when I have a mobile phone, I can literally be broadcasting news at live as they're happening? How are you guys navigating that as a media house?
So, in terms of other people doing it, do you mean, or in terms
Mm.
of us?
You as ABC, because you do work for ABC as a journalist, when you're working as a journalist, and Anastasia could be here with her phone and she can broadcast the news happening live. And for you, this is your bread and butter. How are you guys navigating that world that you can still keep people curious and well informed and you're ahead of it when the world is really on the go?
So, it's interesting you say that because, for example, during the Diddy trial,
Mm,
you saw people, influencers, a lot of influencers outside court reporting on the stories and that sort of thing, as well as mainstream journalists.
mm,
And they all seem to get similar access to the story. But I think as a media organization like the ABC, we're trusted, like our
mm,
output is trusted, and it's up to us to maintain that level of trust that we have in the community by making sure that we stick to journalistic ethics and accuracy and that sort of thing. So I think for us, it's just doing what we do best in terms of making sure that our output is accurate and that we've done all the necessary checks and balances to make sure that it's proper content, I guess. So
mm,
I'm not worrying about Anastasia over there, you
mm.
know, with her microphone. I'm worrying about what I'm bringing to the table, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's also, yeah, that's another nugget in life that we really have to focus on your lane, do what you do and do it best without worrying the rest of the world. If you can obsess about the people you're serving and their service, that it will actually come to fruition. And I want to see how are you guys navigating this in media? You as a journalist, how are you navigating the world of AI? Is it making your job easier? Are you worried that it's going to replace you? What's really happening here with AI?
I'm certainly not worried that AI is going to replace me because AI doesn't have feelings. Like I say to myself, I'm a journalist with heart, you
Mm,
know? I come to an interview wanting with curiosity, wanting to find out more, wanting to get the facts, but also listening. I think the most important part of an interview is listening, right?
mm,
So AI, how is AI going to listen in a way that is reactive and in a way that matters, in a way that truly understands the other person or can empathize with the other person on the other side of the mic? I don't think AI can do that. So that's
mm,
one thing. In terms of how we're navigating AI and that sort of stuff, it's all still very new, right?
mm,
So I'm not using AI at the moment in my day-to-day work. I'm just not. But
mm,
I'm also not ignoring the fact that it's here because ignoring AI, I heard someone say that it's like ignoring the internet in 1995.
mm.
Look where we are now with the internet, right?
Yeah.
So, so, so I think that journalists need to pay attention to AI and
Mm,
really, you know, I think there will eventually be ways where we can use it to enhance our work and that sort of thing. But I don't think it will ever replace us in that
mm,
way.
yeah.
And in terms of AI, that there are also, obviously with the internet, there are the evils of the internet, like there are things that happen on the internet that aren't great. Same
Mm,
goes with AI. I mean, you've got things like Meta training its AI models using pirated books. Now, I'm an author, so that bothers me a lot, you
mm,
know? Like, you can actually go into a database that The Atlantic put together where you can search authors to see if your book has been pirated by these systems that Meta is using. And
mm,
that amounts to theft. They're essentially stealing the work of hard working authors to power their AI models. And that's just not on as far as I'm concerned.
mm,
These authors should be compensated. So there's that issue that's at play as well.
mm,
So I guess in terms of I guess rather than roll with the punches, I think we really need to be on the front foot with this in a lot
mm,
of ways. In terms of journalism, in terms of authorship, I think AI is going to be something that's quite important in our world, and we need to
mm.
be able to go along with the on the journey, but in a way that benefits society.
Mm. Yeah, it is very true. I don't think we can ignore AI. It is here to stay. That's not gonna change. And it's us to work with it to enhance our work and to do what is it that we do with a lot of ease. I bet it's coming to make our job much more ease. But and I think this is where human edge comes from. That we are created for connectedness as humans. We created for connectedness. And so I think we can get very excited, and I am very action biased. I want things, the speed of implementation. When I learn something, let's go implement, let's go. But at the same time, as humans, we are created for connectedness. And so I'm watching the hybrid model of people working from home and stuff. And it is great, but we're also not looking at the impact of it, the negative impact of it, where you're just home and that's it. Then what about the connectedness? And we all need connection as human. And I thought this is a very good juncture to talk about, what does belonging mean to you?
So I find belonging in a lot of different areas of my life. So basically, I have a lot of friends, and it's funny because I remember quite a few years ago, I maybe it was maybe 15, 20 years ago, I sat there and I thought to myself, I don't really have a lot of friends that I can really depend on. I don't have anyone I can just turn to and say, you know, I'm in trouble. I need this, or like just to hang out with and be able to spill the beans and have that
Mm,
reciprocal relationship where you can talk about anything. I sat there and I thought, I don't have that. I don't have friends like that. And I remember getting on my knees and praying to God and saying, God, I just want friends. I just want good, reliable friends. And so, what did God do? He answered my prayer in such a way that now I've got so many friends, I find it difficult to catch up with them all. Like, it's just like I've just got so many friends from all different walks of life. And it's very hard to even make time for some of them because because I'm so busy. And so I think in terms of belonging, I find belonging in my friendship circle, and I've got many different friendship circles, not just one group of friends, people from different walks of life that I've met in different places. I'll meet people, I met a really good friend of mine at the gym. I've met people through work, work colleagues, through church, so many different places. And my sense of belonging comes from being able to open up to these friends and having them being able to open up to me, being able to share a meal, and also in a work sense, having that sense of belonging as well in terms of the team that you work with. I think that's really important as well because you spend the majority of your life at work, right?
Mm,
And so I feel like I have that sense of belonging at work as well, to a certain extent. And I think that that is quite important to have that sense of belonging within your workplace. And that can look like a number of different things, right? It
mm,
doesn't necessarily mean that you're buddy buddy with your boss, but it means that you have that mutual respect where, like, I've always respected bosses who are calm under pressure,
mm,
because in a newsroom environment, a lot can be going on, right?
yeah.
And I'm really lucky that I do have those sorts of bosses at the moment who are calm. They're completely zen, things could be flying all over the place. And I just really respect that. And,
Mm,
and that creates a sense of belonging, having someone who, you know, respects your work, someone who appreciates you and, you know, is treats you like an equal. That
yeah.
creates a sense of belonging.
Mm, being seen, being valued, being respected. That's amazing because sometimes when we talk about belonging, and we did allude to this at the beginning of it all when we hadn't started to record, that it can be seen as a diversity and inclusion initiative. And it's really not, because belonging is a very human need. We all need a sense of connectedness and belonging. And whether it's in our workplaces, whether it's our friendship, whether it's in family, when we feel seen, we show up differently. But also, we have to be on the other opposite side, be able to hold spaces for people who are in our lives to be able to be seen and to feel valued and respected. That's really, really important. So, coming back to workspaces and even in family life, what do you think helps to cultivate a strong sense of belonging?
Well, I think one of the things is respecting people's positions, for
Mm,
starters, like if we're talking about work. For example, um, like there are situations, and I don't want to be specific, where people might envy you. They might be want to be where you are, but they're not, right? They're
mm,
just not. And and they might tread on your toes or encroach on your space without showing you the due respect.
mm,
Like I was telling you about like what it took to get to where I am. Like it wasn't an easy road. And
mm,
that's only half of it. Like I haven't even gone into the depths of what it took. And so when someone tr- tries to take that away from you,
mm,
um yeah, like that can be very um very uh uh um you don't react in the best way, so to
Mm,
speak.
mm,
So I think that all I ask for is respect, due respect, because I feel like I've earned it, right?
mm, mm,
And that sense of belonging comes from being able to um foster, be like, if I'm showing respect to you, like, I expect that respect back. You know what I mean?
mm. Yeah, yeah. Respect is it's so important because then we can define boundaries and be able to like you did say it very beautifully in the workspaces. You don't have to be friends like we are high-fiving each other every 5 minutes, or we hanging out for tea breaks, or we hanging out over the weekend, but there's mutual respect.
Yeah.
And that also in relationship, whether it's friendship, where there's mutual respect, then we can be able to show up as ourselves and be able to bring the best part of ourselves. And that is what is also so important in teams, that if we want to see our teams becoming very productive, at the very center of it has to be respect, because then they know they can show up and show up properly as who they are, really authentically as who they are. I don't like that word because I think it's been overused, but they can show up authentically and be able to unapologetically just be who they are. And that's the very essence of why we are here, the very essence of why we do exist. And I again, in the beginning of the podcast, you did say your name, significant the significance of it. God is
Good.
great. God is
Good.
good. God is
Yeah.
great. And I want to touch the belonging in our spiritual life. Not everybody will call him God. Some will go by the universe. Some will go by Allah. Whatever your God is, whatever it is that you believe in, how important is it to be anchored and to anchor your belonging in your spiritual world?
Well, well, for me, obviously, it's really important because I've written a book called Hip Hop and Hymns. So, the hymn side of things holds a lot of weight as far as I'm concerned. For me, my faith is very important to me, but it's taken it's been a long journey to get to where
Mm,
I am at the moment with my faith. I am a Christian. I believe in God, and I feel that I have a spiritual connection that um, that guides me and gets me through, difficult things that happen and stuff like that. Um, I think without my faith, I wouldn't be as anchored as I am. I think I would find it very difficult to uh, make sense of certain things that happen,
mm,
as well as have as much hope as I do for the future.
mm. Yeah, the anchoring in our spiritual world. What does leadership mean to you?
Leadership, I think it's really important to lead with humility.
Mm,
So, what I was saying before about I respect leaders who are very calm under pressure and that sort of thing. Um, Part of that has to do with being humble enough to realize that, we're journalists, what we do matter, but we're not, what we do does matter, but we're not, um, it's not brain surgery. you know, like, it's not, um, you know, we're not literally saving lives. I mean, some of what we do does have great impact and does impact people and it could lead to people's lives being saved in a roundabout way. but we're not on the in the operating room working on 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 people's brains or whatever. Um, so I think we just need to take a chill pill sometimes and be
Mm,
like, hey, this isn't brain surgery, and therefore it's okay to be calm and chill about a certain situation. You know what I mean? And I think
mm,
great leadership um, is the type of leader that I really respect is someone who is humble, someone who listens, someone who is able to empathize with the people they're leading, So
mm,
like, for example, if you have been where the people you're leading have been. So just for example, I've done the lowest of the low jobs in the newsroom, right?
yeah.
So when I first started, I was like a copy boy type of thing,
Mm,
news operations assistant. And I don't think you can get any lower than that. Um, and so as a leader, and I've done all the jobs through the ranks as well. I've been a producer, um, a journalist, so many different things, right? And so if I'm leading a newsroom, I will have the same amount of respect for that little person doing that boy job that I was doing many, many 25 years ago,
mm,
um, because I know what it's like to do that. I know what it's like to be in that position. And I know what it's like when people treat you like crap because you're in that position.
mm,
So I would want to treat anybody who's in that position like crap.
yeah.
And I think a good leader has been through the ranks and gets that.
Yeah, amazing. And I know you said about it not being about saving life, that there's no rush, we need to come down. That is actually never so important in that moment where you're doing brain surgery to actually be calm. And the leadership in
Mm.
that moment actually really matters. And I say that as a healthcare professional. I say that, and when you said that, actually, I had a news flash as a very young practitioner, and I am in a neonatal intensive care unit, and the baby is crashing, and I'm panicking. I don't know, what do I do next? And the neonatologist very calmly walks up, speaks to me very calmly, holds this baby, does the resuscitation with me, walking me through in calmness. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And so when he spoke, it took me back there, because I also do remember the frustration I've had even in leadership in that environment. It's people who are chaotic and they're panicking because the whole place panics. And so there's a need for leadership to be able to be calm, even under pressure, to be able to be calm, to be able to be collected, to be able to read the room and then lead the room. Because if you can't read the room, then you are not going to be able to lead them. If you're always in panic and it's like, yeah, we need to go, 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 go. There's need in leadership to be able to step back. Let's breathe. Let's think the vision. Let's think why we make decision, make them and move on. So that was really important the way you phrased that, and it's taken me back many years ago too. But yeah, that is so important, how important leadership is in everything that we do. And it's leadership that drives belonging. And that brings me to the third pillar I like to talk about culture. So when we talk about culture, and you're at the intersection of this in so many ways, what does culture mean for you?
So culture can be the type of culture you foster in a workplace, for
Mm,
example. And, you know, the ABC has had a review uh, in terms of staff who've experienced racism at the
mm,
ABC. And in terms of the culture there, uh, it's the type of um, thing where, you know, y- as a leader, you've got to recognize when things aren't going well, right?
Mm,
And then work to change that, right? So culture is something that should be able to be evolved and changed, that type of culture, right? But
mm,
I think that in terms of being able to bring your full self to work is something that's really important. So there's nothing worse than um, saying, you know, you want a diverse workforce
mm,
and then bringing on people who are diverse, quote unquote diverse,
mm,
and then expecting them to leave their diversity at the door and just assimilate into whatever culture you've got happening at your
mm,
workplace.
mm,
I think that can be very troubling for a person
mm,
to have to not be able to bring them their full selves into a space, a particular
mm,
space. And so I think that fostering a culture where you can be yourself is so important. Culture
mm,
can also mean a variety of different things, as you were saying, as you alluded to just then, you know.
mm,
Um, my cultural background is very important to me. And it informs my thinking in a lot of ways. It informs some of my ideas. And I think having people of different backgrounds means that you've got different ideas flowing throughout a workplace and different ways of addressing a problem or in terms of, you know, finding solutions to particular things. People
mm,
will, if you've got people who think differently, then that's going to ultimately be better for the organization.
mm.
So, I mean, yeah, there's so many different elements to culture, isn't there?
They are, and I say culture doesn't make people, people make culture. So when we need to evolve as an organization and we need to review our culture, it's important. And I think for organizations that thrive, the organizations that are very intentional, very, very intentional about what is the culture that we want to cultivate. And I always say, and this is how when I am with organization and working this out, that we reverse code it. Let's look at what our vision is. That vision is gonna inform who we need to become. Yeah. And the people that we're going to hire. And so the culture that we wanna keep in the organization. So we have to always have the end goal in mind because if we don't want it to be a tick box that, oh, we are a culture that is welcoming and a culture that is this, let's actually be really real in what our vision and mission is all about. Then who do we need to be? So these are the people then you're going to, that informs your hiring practices and everything, because then that informs the habits and behaviors that we're going to tolerate. And so when we become very intentional, we're going to bring a team that understands where we're going. But when we do the tick boxes, and talking about tick boxes, we're seeing a lot of DEI initiative now start to die down. Do you have a comment on that? Because most organization a few years ago were like, hey, 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 DEI. And then now we are starting to see them start to die down. Any comment?
So that's a difficult one. So interestingly, I was doing a story about Stephen Colbert. I don't know if you heard about
Mhm, mhm,
his show being cancelled and uh, and all the controversy around that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up in my research was that Paramount had said in their application for Sky, because they wanted to merge with Skydance Media, which has now been approved. One of the things they said in their application is we got rid of all DEI initiatives, you know, um, we're DEI free, basically, um, stuff diversity, stuff inclusion. Um, I'm paraphrasing here, but this is basically what they were saying. And that's interesting to me because Paramount is also, affiliated with Channel 10 here in Australia. And I don't know if you saw their new
Yeah.
TV show, 10 News Plus, but it looks like they certainly don't care about diversity there either. So,
Mm.
so it's just it's troubling, to be honest.
Mm.
It's quite troubling, and I think you know words like woke have been demonized to the point where it's become this dirty little word. And then, diversity is becoming a dirty little word. The word immigrant is like a dirty little word. And what happens if you happen to be an immigrant who's diverse?
Mm.
You know, where's your
Mm.
sense of belonging then? Like, we've
Mm.
been talking about belonging, that
Yeah.
goes out the window. So, yeah, it's extremely troubling. We're in troubling times.
Yeah, will be interesting to see where we really go with this. I think we did go to the extreme, but now we are headed to the other extreme. And it's really good to really find it's the harmony. I call it harmony because we can never have the balance, the harmony of things, that we can allow each other to be human, because at the very core, that's all we all want, to be human and to be able to be seen at the very core of who we are. And I wish we could be like that. Then we don't have the Palestine and the Israelite, and then we don't have male and female. I look forward to that world. And I know I'm only dreaming, but I look forward to that world. But most importantly, the one thing that connects us as human and that really brings us to the depth of what it truly means is about being able to tell our story and the power of story. And this is your bread and butter. This is what you do at the very best of whatever it is that you do. Tell us why stories are important.
Stories are so important because, I actually, it's interesting because I'm going to name drop here, by the way. So I
Mm.
interviewed Sterling K. Brown about
Yay.
about the TV show Washington Black. And one of the things he said is that if history is written by those who are on top, then they can make it look like we made no contribution at all, right?
Mm, mm,
Even though we've been there, we've done this, we've done that, we were talking about the fact that I went to a museum in Atlanta, Georgia, and it showcased a lot of Black inventors. And I saw that a Black man had invented traffic lights.
mm,
And that was something that really stuck with me, right? Because
mm,
wherever you go, you see traffic lights,
mm,
they're so integral to our society. And um and Sterling was saying, well, yes, uh that's why with Washington Black, through their work of historical fiction, they're showing that we've been there, we've done this, we've achieved this, we've achieved that. And yet now they want to change textbooks and make it look like we made no contribution at all.
mm,
So I think storytelling is so important because um, we can talk about some of these things, you know, you can, and it, even with fiction storytelling, right?
Mm,
With the novel I'm writing at the moment, there's an
mm,
element of truth to everything I'm writing. You know,
yeah.
like it's pegged in truth, you
Mm,
know? And I think that without us telling our own stories, you leave it to a select group of people who will paint things in one way.
mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. The Chimamanda Ngozi calls it the power of a second narrative. So if we don't tell our story, then somebody else will tell the story.
And
As we are
another thing
nearing,
she says is that having just one story from, you know, like just having one African story is is just silly. You know, you need multiple, lots and lots of different examples of storytelling from the continent, right?
mm, mm,
So, and she talks about the danger of a single narrative,
mm,
and I think that is so important as well. Like being able to have multiple storytellers from the continent and from around the world, you know, being able
yeah.
to tell their stories in their own ways
Mm. Because we experience things different. You
differently.
and I are black, but we experience blackness differently. Like
Absolutely.
just as basic as that, our experience, even my twin sister and I, raised in the same environment and whatever, we'll experience life very differently.
You've got a
And
twin
yet,
sister?
no, I just was using
Oh.
that's an example.
I got really excited then. I love twins.
No, unfortunately, I am a singleton and I have a singleton child, so no twins. That is the one thing I had said to my obstetrician. I said, you can only see one child. You can't see me carrying tea. As we come to the end, I just want to hear what is the one story as a storyteller that you will stay with you forever? It has made the greatest impact.
Whoa. um, Goodness. I wish I had time to think about this one. Um, I think in the context that we're talking about,
Mm,
we've been talking about work and stuff like that.
mm,
Um, I think my journalistic hero um has did a lot of work around lynchings and stuff stuff like that. I know it sounds very it's a bit much for the end of a podcast. You probably wanted to end on a happy note.
no, that's
Um
all right.
but I guess Ida B. Wells is someone who um is my journalistic hero just because I was talking earlier about being a journalist with heart. And she's someone who, you know, investigated these really serious crimes against black men in the deep south in America. Um, and these men were being lynched for no reason, basically, other than the fact that they were black. And
Mm,
she was able to give dignity back to their families by writing about these lynchings. And she was able to um, try to hold people to account who had committed some of these lynchings. And I think that her story is one that sticks with me, and it's makes me proud to do the job that I do. Um, you know, because journalism and storytelling can have real impact.
mm, mm. That's a good place to stop. That journalism can have a real impact. Great stories can have a real impact. story, your story, own it because it's yours, own your narrative, and it can have impact. As we come to the end, anybody who's listened to us, because it's gone so quick, I cannot believe it. And I'm glad we did already agree to come together and record another session. But as we end this one, if people want to connect, where do they connect? Tell them about the book and how do they connect with you?
So people can connect with me on Instagram. That's where I live at the moment. I'm off X. I still have an X account, but I'm not on there. So don't bother following me on X because because I don't post. But you can follow me on Instagram at Mawunyo Gbogbo. You can visit my website, mawunyo.com.au. Yeah, find me on Instagram and let's hang out.
Manuel, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for gracing us with your time and with your wisdom. And I look forward to the next episode.
Thank you, Anastasia. It's been a pleasure.
Lovely. Thank you.